welcome to Trading the Close on this Tuesday. I'm Toni Valliere with Verified Investing. Here's what's making headlines today. The Dow is rising as investors await tomorrow's Fed meeting, and shares at McDonald's and Home Depot are trading higher, contributing to the boost of the Dow into positive territory. Nordstrom stock rises as the founding family seeks to take the company private. And Microsoft has added 2 new execs to run a new arm of the company called Microsoft AI, which will be responsible for Copilot and its other generative artificial intelligence software. Let's get a check now of where things stand just minutes before the closing bell. Seeing some more green today. The Dow up 325 points, 0.84%, just under 1%. We've got the NASDAQ up 40 points, 0.25%. The S&P 500 also in the green, up 30 points, 0.59%. Oil is up 61 cents. We've got gold down over $2 and Bitcoin down over $3,000. Again, just minutes before the closing bell. Let's bring in Chief Market Strategist Gareth Soloway. I've got the green on, you got the red. We did not plan for that. You know, I feel like we started off kind of mixed today and we're ending with a rally.
Yes, yeah, interesting. And going into the Fed decision tomorrow, which is obviously the big event, and I'll be covering that live right here. So that'll be exciting. That probably go live at 1:50 p.m. So 10 minutes before the announcement, and then I'll go all the way through some of the press conference that Jerome Powell does. So that should be fun. Awesome. If there's a trade, I'm even going to take it live on here. So we'll see. Talk about pressure.
That's great.
Huh?
Yeah. Well, I know you've done that during a stretch. You had a stretch today, and you kept trading, and you were in the green. So
and
that's
stretch,
good.
by the way, that's where someone comes and stretches me out. So for those of you who don't know that,
awesome.
yeah. So let's talk a little bit about this action here. So today, you're right. We started lower on the day, but really look at this. We're rallying into the end of the day. We're at the highs of the day. We're net positive. And again, going back to the Fed, to me, this makes me wonder, is the market starting to anticipate a dovish comment from the Fed tomorrow? That's going to be interesting. But that's what I would take away from this, is that it's that positive vibe as people are getting excited, like the Fed may give us an inch and say June is going to be the cut or whatever it is, right? So again, in terms of price action, we're just rallying here into the end of the day. Again, relatively light volume today. NASDAQ, pretty much the same thing. A little bit weaker. Like here, we can see we're still at the high area here versus the S&P was a little bit above. Right here, you can see from yesterday, right in this range as well, kind of right across there. That's a good area just to understand resistance, right? We can kind of draw that line right across there. But again, going into tomorrow, the question is, what does the Fed do? Everyone's hinging on this. It's going to be the biggest factor because, again, Jerome Powell will tell us, probably guide the markets to expect a June cut, or is it going to be later in the year?
Okay.
Couple other things. You mentioned a couple different stocks today. Nvidia opened the day sharply lower. It doesn't really look like that big of a move, but we were trading basically at 850 and we're back to almost 900. That's a big intraday move for a 1.7, 1.8 trillion dollar company. I still think overall, if you look at this, it's a good comeback today, but to me, this pattern is still this pattern, right? So you still have this kind of in the charts, which is a bearish consolidation pattern.
Is that an engulfing candle?
Yes, engulfing reversal candle, right?
Okay.
So it engulfed that prior one. And so again, as a technician, I always try to impress upon people that the chart is the chart until it's not, right? That the pattern set up. So right now you go with the engulfing reversal. That's the negative. So you go and say, okay, this is eventually likely to break down unless you rally above this high right here. And then you say, okay, well now it's negated. And we just move on and we say, okay, now it's back to bullish on Nvidia.
Okay.
And you mentioned SMCI. This is one I talked about. You can see, again, it did come down today and tag some key support. There's a gap fill right here. Got a little bit of a bounce, but notice Nvidia is positive. This one's not, because they sold, or they're selling 2 million extra shares to the public, and that is dilution, right? So if shareholders are getting diluted, it's essentially making each share worth less, and the price action in the stock is reflecting that today.
Okay.
So again, that's down about 9% right now. Nice little dip. Again, this will be that next area. If it breaks that, you have some key levels down here. But right now, again, a lot will be determined on the Federal Reserve. What else should we talk about today?
Were you in AMD today?
Yeah, just briefly, just a little bit of a trade there. We saw that coming down pretty sharply. Looking at the chart here, it's kind of interesting because we did kiss a gap fill, right? So you can see all this kind of where we went down and then we went up and then sideways. And then if we look at where the support today was, it was right at that low, and we got a little bit of a bounce. So the semis, I mean, today overall was relatively quiet on most of the market. It was really the semiconductors that were the wilder movers. In fact, when you look at my day trades today, they were primarily SMCI, Nvidia, AMD. That was like 90% of my day trades today, because as a day trader, you trade what's active. If something's not active, you can't get the emotional kind of misconnection that you need. So remember, when people are going crazy bullish and they're pushing something up, that's where I can come in and say, okay, they're getting overdone, and it falls back down. If there's no emotion there, then it's just chop shop, and generally traders will lose money when they trade that chop shop.
It's hard to read the signals, they're not as clear. At one point, MicroStrategy and Coinbase tumbled as Bitcoin fell as well, and they were on a similar path. So during the trading today, I did hear maybe, treat MicroStrategy as an altcoin. What are your thoughts on that? Do they tend to follow Bitcoin?
It absolutely does. Absolutely does. So Bitcoin, when it was at its lows, MicroStrategies was down like $250 today. In fact, I talked about a reversal on MicroStrategies just a few days ago in a tweet, talking about how this was likely going to have a tumble. It did. This is the chart of Bitcoin here. But basically, you're right about that, is that the volatility of MicroStrategies, it's almost like a triple ETF on Bitcoin. And so meaning that if Bitcoin's up 5%, MicroStrategy will be up 15%, and vice versa on the downside. Now, the interesting thing here is what we did hit on Bitcoin is, see this little flat area right here? And I got to get my drawing tool up again. But what we can see here, and this is, I love this stuff because it really just shows you, and this is a level that I had pinpointed ahead of time, but if we just drag that over, look at where Bitcoin bottomed out today before a little bit of a bounce. So you hit your first technical support. See how this is kind of like a shelf?
Yeah,
like it literally is a shelf. So it makes sense that if something falls, if you drop a ball and it hits that shelf, it's going to stop there. And that's exactly what support does right here in this range. Now, again, do we go like this and roll over, or do we surge back and retest the 69 and maybe the 73 to 74,000 on the charts? And that's something that we'll have to find out. We know we hit support today. Now, how does the price action move the next couple days?
I know people watching probably think I am in Bitcoin. I'm still learning about it, but I really do want to get in, but I'm trying to be patient, because I do believe in it. I do believe it could definitely soar, but I don't want to get in right now.
Yeah, so I think, and this is the kicker, right? Is like, so you have to choose your levels, and you just have to be okay with that. Sometimes like I miss the boat, and that just happens. But like I always say, is there's always another trade. It's not like when you trade stocks, commodities, crypto, there's always going to be another trade. I mean, think about people that chased at in 2021, and look at what the resulting move. Now, there's no guarantee that will happen again.
Sure.
But again, in the very least, I would never chase it up here. When you see this extension move up, why are you buying north of $70 or $70,000? Let it pull back at least. I mean, at least you could say today, if you did buy today, like, oh, well, at least it hit this support level right here, right? At least it kind of got into that level there. Now, again, I'm kind of still in the camp that I still think there's going to be a kind of a bubble bursting, not in crypto necessarily, but in the stock market. And I think we're already seeing that with Nvidia coming off the highs. And look at how Bitcoin's reacting as soon as Nvidia's not going up every single day and just ripping with the stock market. We're already starting to see that. So my fear is that if the stock market starts going like this, it's really hard for Bitcoin to hold up, and Bitcoin probably comes back to my general target, 52, 49,000, this zone right down here.
Okay.
And again, that would be, honestly, if you look at the historic retraces on Bitcoin, that's honestly your run-of-the-mill retrace. Bitcoin does these type of pullbacks, 20% pullback when we had the spot ETF approved. That was just run-of-your-mill, and then it went back up.
Exactly.
So I think that's important to kind of take a look at. I do want to show Ethereum. I know we don't talk about it a lot in Creating the Close, but I love just showing this. So here's your Ethereum move to 4,000, big pullback.
So similar.
Yes,
pattern
super similar. Look at this low from not that long ago. This was that big dip, and then it's almost identical to that low, literally within $1 or $2 of that low, and that's where it found the bounce. Now, this is my zone right down here. It's just below 3,000. That's a confluence of a flat level here, and then there's an upsloping trend line right in that zone. So that's kind of where I think it's going to go. But in all fairness, would it shock me to see a little bit of a move up like that before it rolls over? No, not at all. That's normal for charts. Charts don't necessarily always go in one direction.
Just a little tease.
That's right. They like to bounce around because essentially you're going to get buy the dippers, right? People are conditioned in stocks, in everything pretty much, that if it's a dip, you got to be a buyer because it's going to go make new highs.
Exactly.
And so that's where you get these moves, and people are going to start to say, oh, well, here we go. We'll go back to the all-time highs, and then eventually it runs out, and it can potentially go back to key support there.
Let's talk about crashing and bubbles. Are you still seeing parallels and similarities with the dot-com bubble and AI?
Yeah, there are a lot of similarities. And again, it may not be perfectly aligned, but the mentality and the kind of the craze. So one of the things I've learned in trading, and this is day trading and swing trading, is that the psychology behind a move is almost always identical. If you look at the move in crypto in 2021, it was very similar to the dot-coms. In other words, you had a lot of crap in the dot-coms, like dot-com stocks, like literally kids would, well, not kids, but let's say 20-year-olds would create a dot-com in their parents' basement and then get it listed on like the bulletin boards, which are like the crap. It's like the meme coins of the dot-com.
Yeah.
And it would go to like $100 million valuation just because it had .com in its title.
Yeah.
Well, we saw the same thing, right? We saw the meme coin craze, the Doge, all these different things going on, and you're even seeing some of that now in crypto, where you're getting these things to be created, these different coins that really it's just a joke type of thing, but people just rush in. They don't ask questions like, is there real value here? And that's where you get that mentality of like, once people start investing because they think they can just dump it to someone else later on when they make 100 million or 10 million, that's the mentality that tells you that it's a bubble. And in some cases, we do have that in AI. Now, Nvidia is actual. I mean, they literally have good quality stuff, as do many ones. But again, the valuations and the craze over AI is certainly very similar to the dot-coms.
Sure, I got to bring up one more point. We were talking about this, I think maybe somebody asked in the trading room about it being an election year, so they can't picture a big recession or a big crash. But you brought up 2008.
Yeah, so, and that's the only thing is like, I'm a defensive trader. And and to be honest, I'm only a defensive trader is because every time I'm not defensive, that's when I get smoked. And so you get taught when you touch the hot stove enough, you eventually learn like, wow, that burns. That's not a good thing. Let me figure out how not to do that.
Yes.
And so I always think when people are like guaranteeing like, oh, this is definitely going to be an up year, I'm like, well, let's not forget one of the biggest market drops in recent history in 2008 occurred in an election year. So there's nothing guaranteed. And I guess that's the takeaway is that when you're investing and trading, you never can never go in and say, oh, this is definitely going to happen. Because I know from personal experience when I do that, I'm basically might as well just give my money to charity because it's going to go away anyways.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm learning that firsthand. I'm learning a lot from you in the trading room. It is very cool. And you guys can do it as well. You just go to verifiedinvesting.com. You'll get all the information you need. Gareth, thank you so much. Remember, you can watch Gareth for free navigate the charts ahead of the opening bell. That's every weekday morning at 9 a.m. on his show, The Game Plan, right here on the Verified Investing YouTube channel. So thank you so much for watching Trading the Close. We will be back tomorrow with Paul Sampson, our in-house crypto expert, and Gareth, of course. So make it a great rest of the week.